Hey everyone, welcome back to Pros and Shows. I'm your host Josiah, aka Mauler67, and with me, as always, I got my buddy, I got my pal, I got my brother Austin. Austin, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm doing okay. I can't really complain too much. Kind of spent the whole day relaxing, watching shows, playing in games. I've been really addicted to the supermarket simulator as well as Enshrouded Friends. Capitalism at its finest in a ideal world where people will always travel and buy foods regardless of pricing as long as it's below market price, which makes but other than that, pretty good. Yeah, it's Father's Day, so I contacted Dad, wished him a happy Father's Day, talked to him for a bit before he started getting too gravelly to speak, and then he's like, "I'll get you later. I can barely talk now, so I'll see you later." I'm like, "All right, yep, no, I'll see you, Dad." But how was your day, Austin?
Well, it wasn't bad. We decided, me and my wife are going to go watch the new Inside Out movie. And then we bought tickets, and then we totally spaced on Father's Day and forgot that it was Father's Day. And then Mom said something, was like, "Hey, do you know Father's Day is like tomorrow?" And I was like, "What? No, it's not." And then I looked it up. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it is. I spaced." So
Oh no, I'm a horrible
I had
son.
I had to rush and get everything. So, but it works out. Like our dad's really easy to shop for.
Yeah,
So,
he's also someone who like doesn't care too much about that stuff.
Yeah. And then we're like so we had to do that. And then we had her dad. We hung out with him for a while, and we went out to eat and stuff like that. And got him a couple cool things. Like I got him a cigar and some pans that he wanted, and then we went to a Mexican place in town here, and then we got back, and then we were supposed to be on at 8:15, but the service kind of was like drawn out, and then I was driving home, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta take these people home first to Apple Valley, and then I gotta drive back." I was like, might as well push this back until 9 now. So that's what we did.
It happens.
It happens. It is what it is.
I'm never going to like fault you or whatnot if like something comes up and you can't do it. I'm just like whatever.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get that. I feel the same way.
But yeah, I mean, that's good. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all individuals who are taking on the father role. Good to say for those people who are putting in that effort. Because gosh dang, yeah, fathers. Speaking of fathers, let's talk about a show, Austin, where the father keeps murdering the kids. Austin, we're talking about Being Human season 4 after
so long.
a couple weeks of breaks of talking to it, and then life happened, and we weren't able to do the show. Just a lot of like inconsistencies, it seems. But we're finally doing it. We're finishing off. We're getting the slate clean. Austin, what did you think of Being Human season 4?
I think that this show ends on a good note. I think it was, well done. What I read from Reddit and like other people that have watched the show, they were kind of a shock that it was being canceled. But it wasn't really canceled. It was more of like they were finishing the story at least. Because like when you get canceled, it like abruptly ends, and like it's usually it abruptly ends, and there's no like season to tell the rest of the story, like Midnight Club, or it could be like one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, which is The Rock and the Sun, was canceled the day of their last season episode, so they had to change the whole episode within I think within like a day. They had to write like a new episode of like trying to figure out how they were going to end the series. So it was kind of nice, like them just wrapping it up. And I'm really okay with stories that can end. We talked about this before with Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad didn't need to go for like another 8 to 9, to season 8 or 9, so, or 7 even, and I was like, it's good. And we and there's also problems that we've had in the past with shows where they don't end when they should have ended. Like we talked about Barry,
Yep.
Even though
Yep.
Barry's a good show, it should have ended in season 3. Like it was just
It was set up in a way to end at that time, and it would have been satisfying.
Yeah. So like, it is what it is. But this show I think did really well with ending it and like coming everything to a conclusion that was a palatable like show. Like it's not the greatest ending, but it's a good ending. Like I enjoyed the ending. This season was very interesting because where we left off last time, the last shot we saw of like season 3 was finding out, is it Josh? Josh is a werewolf.
Josh, yeah.
Yeah, Josh is now full wolf, and he's like...
Yeah, he's only transforming into human once every full moon with the
Yeah.
little reverse lycanthropy going on, which
He's
I,
like,
I
"Oh."
did like. I thought that was a fun, interesting issue to have.
Yeah, and Aiden and Sally have like a really good ending. I like their endings. And then we didn't see Sally, like, what was it? She was like sucked into that dimension with Donna, the witch.
Yep.
So that was interesting to see where that came from. And the ending for Sally, I really thoroughly enjoyed. I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed the ending for Aiden where like the door shows up. And it was like, it's for you, buddy. And I was like, oh man, Aiden gets to go. Like he finally, doesn't have to live this terrible life anymore that he hates. It's kind of like how I feel with like an Interview with the Vampire with was it Louis, where he just hates being a vampire. He's like, I hate this.
I didn't want this life.
Yeah, it's like, no, I was just conned really into this life. But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought this season was really well done. It was a conclusion that I was happy with. It wasn't a conclusion where I was like, ugh, like man, they kind of gave up on the show because they were, they were kind of ending. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm kind of intrigued now to watch the British version of the show because I've read other things on Reddit where people are like, yeah, the British version's really good too. So I was like, I might. So
if you're cynical like me, you won't enjoy it.
It's like
it's a completely different beast. It's a completely different style. It's the equivalent of watching like think of it like what's the show with the dog? I can't think. Wilfred. It's like watching the two different styles of Wilfred.
Yeah, Wilfred or Shameless is the same way too, because like they're two different entities. Like one's, it's kind of the same gist, but it's not like the same feel. I've been told, like the same vibe. Yeah. So I was like, I'll watch it, see how it happens.
It's
that's
the
like
same thing with this one. Like the US version of Being Human is much more like personal horror, thriller, and the UK version is not so much that. I never watched it far enough to get like a full feel for what it was. But I did watch it enough to be like, I won't enjoy this because I'll be like making fun of it too much. That's my biggest hang up on it.
Yeah. Sometimes like the show that's like brought over here does it better in my opinion. And sometimes it doesn't, because I've been told like many people hate like the American version of The Office, but they love the British version. And then I've been told people hate the British version and love the American version because Steve Carell and that whole cast.
Well, it all comes down to localization efforts, right?
Yeah.
Like, as long as the localization is done properly and correctly, the US audience will like the original show.
Yeah, unless it's a movie. If it's a movie, I think that changes everything.
That's the issue, right? Like, whenever they make a movie, their only intention is to tell the story of it. And they're not like taking any like changes or drastic changes to it. I think of like, the Hell's Kitchen or Kitchen Nightmare, how like drastically the UK version is from the US. Like the US version is very like drama based, like overhyping things because that's American television. But then you watch the UK one, it's much more like subtle. He's actually like giving helpful advice. He's cooking with them, and it's like it's very noticeable that it's two different audiences.
Oh yeah.
But there's a reason why Kitchen Nightmare does so well in the US, because people eat that up here.
Yeah, they do. That's like, like when I was saying about a movie, like I remember one of my favorite movies of all time, and it is a foreign movie. It's called Old Boy. It's a Korean movie. And they just remade it, like, what was it, like 10 years ago? And Spike Lee.
I like how you say just remade it, and it's been 10 years.
It's been 10
They
years,
remade it 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's been 10 years. I know, I forget.
We're
But
old Austin.
they made it and they remade it and they changed the story around a lot. They kind of kept like some of the key parts, but the movie itself is so bad that I was just like, I can't watch this. It kind of ruined the feel for the original. So it's hard with me, like with movies where like people will be like, you got to watch like the remake. It's coming to America. They're going to remake it in the American version. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like after Old Boy, I think I'm done with that. It's kind of how I feel with like animation becoming live action. Sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, don't do this. It's usually just terrible CGI most of the time, you know. But yeah, that's how I feel about the show. I really enjoy the show so much. This is something I'll probably watch a while now. My buddy Travis was a huge fan of this show, actually. He said it was like one of his favorite shows too.
I think anyone who had like some type of pertain towards like science fiction or fiction of like werewolves, vampires, or even ghosts tend to like this show a lot because of like the take on it and how real and honestly, like even coming from it from the perspective of a like LARP, like a Vampire the Masquerade LARPer, right?
Yeah.
The concept that they create in this game would be an amazing and fun character to play for the show. Like this idea of like, oh, I'm a vampire. I don't really like vampire society. I'm trying to be more human. And so I'm living with other monsters, hoping to like find humanity between it all. And I really like that. And I'm like, I know for a fact that other people would like that too. But you know, it's hard. Like that's one of the things I'm actually doing for the next Chronicle that we're playing next year in January. Whenever we get to make new characters, the character I'm going to play, I kind of took a percentage of Aiden and incorporated that into my character because because the new system has it much more as like a personal horror game, so it's really hard for you to like maintain innocence and be good while feeding and not consuming, so like you're in this constant decay of like death. And so I very much was like taking the Aiden mindset of like, I'm trying to be as good of a person as I can be. But doing the bare minimum I have to do to keep living essentially. And I really like that. I'm like, I'm really excited to play that character whenever that Chronicle comes next year. And like the story of being human has also given me inspirations for different things for next Chronicle story, like DMing stuff. Because I liked the characters. I thought the characters were fun and interesting. They weren't like bad. I think of all the characters, the only one I had any issue with through the whole series was Sally. And that was just because it seemed like every season was Sally causing issues.
Yeah.
Like Aiden caused issues, but Sally was the one who was like the end of the season was always around her issue.
Yeah.
Which kind of made me kind of like, she also seemed to always just kind of luck out with OP things happening for her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a ghost. Oh, I now can possess people. Oh, yeah. I'm a ghost. Oh, I'm now also part witch. Oh, I'm a ghost. I can also time travel.
She kind of reminded me of like Eric Cartman when they played in South Park. There's an episode where they play ninjas. And like they constantly like he'll be like, he's like, then I throw my stars out. He's like, no, but you can't do that because my force field's up. And it's like, you don't have that power. And he's like, yes, I do. You know, so like the whole concept is like that, which is hilarious. I love that.
Yeah.
But how I felt with Sally though, it kind of, I do agree with that in a little bit. It kind of did center around Sally a lot towards the end of that. There is one part of the show actually that gave me an idea for a D&D campaign, and I was like, okay, that'd be kind of cool because I've never seen a movie do that or a TV show. And they brought it up. It was so when it shows like Aiden like back then, like in the revolutionary time period, you know, he's showing his son. I was like, man, it would be really cool is like a vampire story during the Revolutionary War time that would be like this, you know, like these people are just trying to hunt you know, like these red coats, but actually in reality they're real vampires that snuck
Oh,
over here.
fun fact, Austin, that's basically Warhammer. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
because
right.
like you have the one faction of Warhammer called the I think it's like Blood Angels or something like that,
Yeah.
and they are custodians or space marines. I don't know all the information, so I'm going to butcher this. But they're essentially like vampires. They're like part of the good guys, but they're like as evil as you can be of the good guys. And they're
Mhm.
like doing blood rituals and everything to survive and live. So it's like, are they good? Are they bad? I don't know. But at least they're on our side.
Mhm.
No, I agree with that. I think that's interesting, though. I do find it funny that that's kind of the take of Interview with the Vampire with
Yeah, theirs is more World War. Yeah, it would be World War One. Yeah, it'd be World War One, World War Two. No, it'd be World War One.
be closer
that
to
makes
World War
sense.
One. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when theirs takes place.
Well, Prince
Um,
Ferdinand with his top down.
Top down, man. Join it.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that meme.
I
But
I think.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
no. I was gonna say like it. That's what Interview with a Vampire does really well. Is like they have a time period set, so I like that. That's what I really like about that show, is the time that it's set in most of the time.
Mm.
It's more like that era where you know it's more realistic in my opinion with that era to have a vampire
Oh,
like
because
story
they could
instead of
actually
now.
survive and like exist.
Like a lot of people don't realize this. Like when people are like, "Oh, that'd be cool if they did vampires now," and I was like, "No, I don't think so," because people have recording devices all everywhere. Like they even make fun of that in What We Do in the Shadows season. What was it? The last season, season 5, where like
Oh,
you
with
know,
the news station.
yeah, like it makes sense. Like people are like, "Hey, you know, they filmed you on Instagram," or you know, he was doing that live stream of like him going to space. You know, like someone's gonna find that stuff and be like, "Yeah, they're a vampire," but then they have to, you know, their resolution is like, "Let's hypnotize everyone on the TV."
Anyone who
you know?
watches, well, you know what's funny, right? You know that whole thing about like hypnotizing the TV. That was actually a plot point in Doctor Who. So I never watched it, so I'm probably going to butcher this as well. But my friend who was a big Doctor Who fan explained to me, there's these like people, right, who are like these ugly face individuals, and anytime you see them, when you finish seeing them, you forget that you've seen them, right? And so they manipulate and they do things behind the world that they don't know. And so what the doctor did to counter them is he embedded into the moon landing a single fragment where he comes on screen, tells them if they ever see this thing to kill them on sight, and essentially like embeds it into their brain. And because it shows the image of it, they forget that that's ever there. So you have everyone in the United States watching the moon landing, and they get this like hidden not message in their brain. And so whenever they appear, like everyone just murders them because they all have been like conditioned to do it, because everyone has seen the moon landing. The moon landing keeps getting shown everywhere. And so like that's the whole thing. And I'm like, that's a really cool conception of a way to counter these beings who you can't see, but you'll remember them upon seeing them again, is you embed the mindset that you have to kill them into their mind. I'm like, I love that.
It's an inception.
It's an Inception thing. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, I haven't watched that movie in a long time.
Doctor Who has some fantastic writing
Oh no,
at
yeah.
different points, but I watched all of a handful, like I forget what all I watched. I watched some of it and I enjoy some of it, but then there's other really campy things that I don't enjoy as much. But I definitely understand the fandom, why they love it, because there are good writing.
Yeah, and like the thing is with Doctor Who and how I feel about that is like I only watched like maybe 2 seasons of Doctor Who. And that's because one, I had a Blu-ray of what was it, the 8th Doctor, so I watched all that. And then David Tennant, because I love David Tennant, so I was like,
I love,
you know, because after I watched Jessica Jones and he played Purple Man, I was like, all right,
gotta watch more things with him.
Watch David Tennant. This guy's pretty cool. And then of course I love David Tennant and Good Omens and everything else. So you know, it's
DuckTales.
very well done. Ooh, yep. But that's the thing. I think the show did really well. It wasn't like it wasn't the greatest piece of television, but it was something that was good to watch. Like I enjoyed it. Like it's something maybe I could put in the background if I'm like wanting to rewatch it sooner or later.
This show is the equivalent to me of like Heroes season 1 and 2, or like maybe it was just season 1.
Season 1.
I can't remember, because I remember like watching like Heroes was a thing that whenever you were growing up, it would come on, you and the family would sit down to watch it. This is the same kind of feeling I felt with this. Like if this show was showing when we were a kid and it was on air, it would be me, you, mom, and dad wouldn't be watching it. He would be refusing. He would be like, get home, and he'd be like, give me the TV clear, I'm changing it to the weather. But it's like that level of storytelling where it's like, is it phenomenal to the point that it's groundbreaking? Maybe not, depending on your style of writing. But is it like good enough to like hook you in every week as a new episode? Yeah, sure. I would go out of my way to watch it. I think I did actually when it first started airing, and then I lost access to TV, and then I never went back to it. But just because, you know, I entered into the college years and I was just spending my time on the internet the whole time instead of anything else. But no, like it's a really good show. I really enjoyed it. My only gripe I had with the ending of the series, right, was one, I felt like Josh never got any form of like safe system, right? Every season it was the same issue for Josh, and I felt like they really dropped the ball on him because every season was the same thing. Pack comes by, they want him to join, he doesn't want to join, they try to kill Aiden, they kill them instead. Like that is because the first season it was Ray, the second season it was the two twins, the third season it was that whole pack, the fourth season was the whole family people. It's like, come on, come up with something a little extra new. I liked what they were going with in the fourth season, but then they kind of like pushed it to the side for the pack again. I was like, okay, whatever. Aiden, I felt like, was the highlight through the whole series. With every season, a new thing was kind of going on that was making him interesting and fun. I did think the fourth season was probably the weakest of them all.
Yes.
Of Aiden's story. But that's also because, like, when you have like characters that you introduce, I think because we've been watching shows a lot together, we've been watching a lot of these episodic shows, you can kind of tell when shows are writing season to season and not series wise.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the biggest issue with Being Human, is that every season is self-contained, and issues that present itself in later seasons felt like it should have been introduced earlier in the show. Like Sally with the whole like, oh, I can bring someone back to life by sacrificing myself. That should have been presented in the beginning of the series, and then they find a different way for her to solve the issue, and then she has to go back to that issue to save Aiden, you know? Like, that to me was a thing that was like, I don't like how we found this in the beginning of the season and she uses it by the end of the season. It also felt extremely cheap, and I did like the fact that Aiden became human again, and then they're just like, yeah, you have like a 90-year-old heart and everything, like you're dying, like you only have a week left to live,
you're good.
I'm like, man, really destroys your, like, her sacrifice, right? That it doesn't revitalize the body.
Yeah.
But I guess her sacrifice didn't matter at all, because in the end, he got to go to heaven, but she was also there. So what did she really sacrifice? Nothing. So
self-sacrifice.
You know what's messed up now? Well, you know what's messed up now, right?
No.
We have all those ghosts in the world who could sacrifice themselves to resurrect someone and get to heaven on their own. But they'll never know, because they all died and no one knows. Like, that is such a crap thing to think about, you know?
Well, that's part of it.
Because imagine, like, you have all those ghosts walking around who are like crazy and everything. Imagine each of them just waiting for someone to die so they could sacrifice themselves to resurrect them, and then they're like, "Yeah, I'm in heaven now." Like, it's such like a hand toss, like, whatever, happy ending, hand wave. And then Aiden, the near 200 years he's been alive, murdering and massacring people, all of that thrown away. Like, we don't care about that. He got resurrected and he's now in heaven, so it's all good. Or in the other world. It was a funny thing to me. But I will also say probably my least favorite part of the show this season was the time traveling part of this season. And I liked the stories they told. Like, I thought it was really cool. I didn't like the fact that they said that she was actually time traveling.
Yeah.
I would have liked it better if she was seeing, like, basically living premonitions of, like, what could have happened.
See, like, when that happened, it reminded me of something that I love. So I'm not a fan of time travel, really. I do like the movies. I think they're I think time travel is a goofy concept. Just because Back to the Future, I love Back to the Future, but there's a lot of problems with Back to the Future and how time travel works. Same way with
they
Endgame
shove it all
that.
up their butt by the end of that season by showing one little thing.
They're like, just here you go. But there is a piece of literature out there that I really like that's like that, and that is Lock and Key's version of time travel. In the books is amazing because what it is like they find a key that's like part of the grandfather clock that's in their house. And they can set the clock to a certain date and time and go back and look at the family history in that time period. They're like ghosts pretty much. Like they're in like their own thing and they kind of see just like, what.
So they can't really affect anything. They just watch.
Yeah, it's just they watch. And I was like, that's a cool concept. Like you can't affect the the future.
Yeah.
But there is prophecies that can be fulfilled that you could know about because you use the key. That's what the key was purposely for. It's like, oh, he made this key. We're missing a key here because we don't know what this key does. And then that's how they find out about the alpha key. And I was like, oh, okay, that's awesome. I like that concept because you don't have to be like, because it becomes convoluted.
That's the thing, though. That's not time traveling at that point, right?
No. But that's the only thing that I think that could even be.
I agree. I 100% agree. Fun fact: I'm watching the YouTube series of LA by Night, which is a Vampire the Masquerade live play with famous like actors and whatnot, favorite voice actors and everything from Critical Role and whatnot. And in it, one of the elder characters uses a thing called like Memoriam. I forget what it is. It's a power in VTM apparently that elders are basically able to go into torpor and relive a night of their life hundreds of years ago. And even though like it's not a perfect one-to-one recreation and some things are a little different, some things different, it allows them to relive it and see what happens. And it's kind of the same thing that you basically put there forth with the key, where it's like they're going back, they're reliving it, but they're not able to change or affect anything. And they're more or less like a passenger in the time flow. And I like that. I do like that. I wish more things did that.
Yeah.
But being human did the time travel. I would have liked it if it was just nothing more than a like visions. I also felt it was really weird for them to include Aiden's wife from like his first marriage. I love the fact that she ate their child, like she killed their child. I was like, that's a great character development twist. It also explained how she was so like gung-ho on it. It also did not make sense that like she is by definition exactly what Aiden was looking for in the first 2 seasons. And she just now shows up and she's like, he's failing to be able to do what she was telling him to.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is he failing so bad? Like even the last season and this season didn't give a good enough reason why he's failing. Like he didn't fall back into becoming what he was. I don't know. It's a weird, interesting thing. I also felt like she got the short end of the stick getting killed like she did. She shouldn't have been killed, but they had to do that. They had to wrap up everything like that. Altogether, I liked the show a lot. I thought the show was good. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend people who like this type of style series. I also would love to hear other like fans of like the folklore, like vampires, werewolves, and ghosts and whatnot, their own perspective, maybe some additional like, well, did you know this was actually canon to X, Y, and Z, and that. Like, I would very much like to hear more horror buffs about that as well.
Yeah. No, I think it did really well on like you know, it wasn't, they didn't go too far out of like the monsters really in reality, like their lore. It wasn't like something that was like Twilight where it was like, hey, vampires sparkle instead of dying in the sun, kind of deal.
Vampires sparkle and they jump around.
Yeah,
werewolves are able to imprint onto babies.
Oh man, don't even start on that. Oh my gosh, it was awful. CGI baby. I have nightmares. There's two babies I always have nightmares.
To be fair, Austin, there was also CGI babies in this show too.
Yeah, but it wasn't like bad. Like it was okay, but it wasn't like, you know, Bella's baby that looked like really weird CGI.
Weird and deformed.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, watching like looking back, like there's a movie that it terrifies me still, and it's called Trainspotting, and there's a part where like a baby's crawling on the ceiling and it like turns its head. And like he's freaking out because he's trying to, I think he's trying to get clean at the point because he's a heroin addict, and he sees that, he's like, ah. And JonTron actually showed a clip of that video one time on like his original like old classic videos. But everyone knows it from Trainspotting, and I was like, man. But then looking back now after I watched it like a couple weeks ago, I was like, wow, that is, you can tell that's a fake baby. Like really fake. And you're like, yeah. But you know what man, I liked the dynamic that these three characters had, you know, because having a ghost, a wolf, and a vampire all in one house really sounds kind of goofy, kind of like a Robot Chicken skit to me in a way.
100%.
If I told it to my friend.
Yeah.
But I think it's really well done that it wasn't like they didn't rely on humor at all. That's the thing that I think would have killed this show, is if it was more humor oriented than just being like something that's more dramatic and like, you know, trying to figure out certain, you know, the character building in the show is really well done. I thought it was.
They had humor in the show, but it was very like minimal, mainly coming from self-deprecation, like self-deprecation.
It wasn't overused a lot. Like that's the thing that I'm always worried about with TV shows, is like they have really good seasons and then they'll like bring humor in because they think people will like all that humor. I love comedy. Don't get me wrong. I love humor. I like a good joke. But sometimes it can ruin some things that doesn't need to have humor in it. Like the Marvel movies are guilty of that now, you know, like sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, okay. You know, it's funny with Thor Ragnarok, but it's not funny with like Captain America and Ant-Man. Like I
like Ant-Man. I'll give it for Ant-Man.
I like Ant-Man 1 and 2, but you know, Quantum Universe was awful. But also the CGI was really bad in that movie, and it's because they were overworking their, you know, computer whatever, that the type of artists that do that
CGI,
like CGI, yeah. But yeah, I'm kind of glad. I'm really glad that you made me watch the show, even though like you told me like when we first started this, you're like, it's a little aged. Like I remember watching it when I was in like college, and I was like, oh man,
it's definitely aged. Like watching it and seeing it, I'm like, there's definitely little things I'm just like, oh, that's an outdated thought process or outdated mindset. But they also had like small representation in there that I thought like people would appreciate, like Josh's sister. I'm like, solid. Like at least they have a character, right? And she is her own person with her own problems and everything like that.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. I liked it, so it's something I'll probably just, you know, keep around.
Keep around, watch it every now and then.
Something I'll have around and just watch it from time to time if I feel bored or if I want something to. Because I rewatch a lot of shows sometimes. It's hard to like. Some shows I can't rewatch, even though I really want to rewatch them. Sometimes it takes me a couple years to rewatch them. It's not like something that I watch every year because it's something to pass time, or I'm doing something like when I play like a game that's just a point and click game thing, you know, and I don't have to pay too much attention to the point and click. Then I'll put on like, you know, Futurama or something. Like I just caught up on most of the Hot Ones episodes. So like, you know, that's the kind of stuff. I think this show would fall in that category where I could just put it on and then just like play and then be like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Or you know, there's always this cool thing that I have sometimes where I'll watch a show and then I forget to pause it because I'll go grab something or I'll go to the bathroom real quick, and then I'll rewatch a show and be like, whoa, I didn't know that. Like, it was like a crucial part. And you're like, oh wait, I didn't know that at all. And then like you rewatch.
I was not aware of this.
I did not know that. And it was just like a small little thing that they showed that impacts like a character.
I think for me, shows like this that are like season episodic things, I have a hard time rewatching, except unless I want to watch the whole thing. I was very happy that I got to rewatch and watch all this, because now it's kind of like embedded into my brain. Now I remember everything, and I'll probably be good to not have to watch it for another like year or two, and then I'll have the same thing with you where I won't watch it. The shows I tend to watch a lot of are episodic, like throwaway, mainly Futurama like shows.
Yeah.
I still enjoy it. I still like it a lot. But all right, Austin, I think that basically does it for our episode of Bros and Show for this week. Next week, Austin, we're watching Dead Boy Detectives, which is a show on Netflix. It is in the same universe as the Sandman series.
Yes.
So
and the Sandman comic book too.
The comic books, well, the Sandman series is in everything of that. You know,
everything with the Sandman.
So definitely should be fun. Which will be interesting. I wonder if, because this came out before season 2, if we're going to see the origins in season 2 of Sandman. I assume so. I would love that, because anyone who doesn't know that it's connected to the Dead Boy Society, connected to Sandman or whatnot, you'll find out as you watch it and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think that they're moving on pretty fast with Sandman, because the shots that I've seen of it, it looks like they're doing the whole Orpheus storyline too, of Morpheus's son. So
well, do remember that in the second phases of the book they do have Orpheus already, because there's that whole where the Constantine has to go get his head.
Yeah, well, they show like beach shots of him, like full body, so, and like
it could be reflective, looks like, you know.
Yeah, it could be. It looks like a wedding. That's what I'm thinking. So like that's why I was thinking it's probably the wedding of that. So I'm really excited.
They could just be condensing those into like singular stories instead of having multiple spread out. But all right,
and this gives us like a little taste of, you know, waiting for Sandman season 2, because they just announced like a month ago like the whole cast of like who's going to play the Eternal. So I thought that was great. I was like, wow, they had some decent people. They showed like 3 Eternals in the original season 1, but then they have Destruction, and they have Despair, or no, Despair actually. She was shown way before actually, and I didn't know it was Despair when they show her. But there is something that I'll point out when we do get around to that. But yeah, they showed Despair and like you know, Delirium, all them. So it was really cool. Did like a little trailer thing. So
well, I can't wait. I'm excited for that. But I am excited for Dead Boy Detective Agency, which we will be reviewing next week on Sunday nights, hopefully at our proper time, but who knows? We'll figure it all out as time goes.
Because I will be in Pittsburgh next weekend.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, we'll have to figure it out then. So
it's like 8:15, you know. We're probably gonna be back here at like 4:00, so should be good.
Yep. All right, sounds good. All right, well, that will be it for us today for Bros and Shows. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Thank you, Mom Burkhart. We love you too, and we hope you stay healthy as well. So we love you. We love you all. Thank you all so much for stopping by, and thank you all so much for tuning in.